What's up, everybody? Welcome back into Hawk Talk on Melrose. I am Collin, joined today with Tyler after Iowa's 40-16 dominating win at home against Washington Huskies yesterday. Kirk Ferentz' 200th Big Ten win, which was awesome to see in person yesterday, and just an overall really good game. Tyler, my just general thoughts here is we finally played pretty much a full game. I mean, this was something that we have talked about a lot, about where it just seems like every single game, it's like one half is good, one half is bad. Finally, we did a full game of just good football. 20-10 in the first half, 20-6 in the second half. You can't get much better than that. We scored in every quarter yesterday, and we just played complimentary football. The offense played well. All 40 points came from the offense. You go back to the last few years, it seemed like if we put up like 20 or 30 points, well, 7 of those points were special teams or defense. Yeah. No, this was all of the offense. 7 straight scoring drives. The defense, outside of the first 2 drives, which we'll talk about, played really good against a pretty dynamic Washington offense. I'm not saying they're great by any stretch of the imagination. They're definitely not as good as what they were last year, but it's still a decent offense. And then the special teams, Reese Dakin had some few good punts. Caden Weegan had a really nice punt return. And a block punt or a block kick. We made our field goals, just complimentary football. And yeah, that was just kind of my general thoughts as we start this podcast.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. I think it was a full 4-quarter performance from everybody, and really even like to Cade to a certain extent, right? We finally saw him with a passing touchdown, 2 passing touchdowns against a Power 5 opponent, which was something I know I've been begging to see on this podcast, right? Like it's one thing to do it against Illinois State, and it's another thing to do it against some really solid competition. And Washington came in 4-2. I mean, they were really good, right? They just beat Michigan at home. They had a lot of momentum. But I was feeling decent about this game. I think me and you both picked Iowa to win this game. We thought it was a must-win game, right? And boy, did they exceeded expectations with a 40-16 blowout at home. And really, I mean, you take away that last touchdown even from Washington because we had all the backups in. And so it was really just from start to finish a complete game. And I know me and you we said, like, even during the game, we're like, man, when is the last time we hadn't had to sweat a game like this where it's actually against a good opponent, and from start to finish there was no doubt.
Exactly. Second half was so nice.
The second half,
especially when the sun got over the press box, we're relaxing and just having fun. No, it was great. And yeah, you hit it with Washington. I mean, this team could very well have been, undefeated or maybe only one loss coming into Iowa City. They really should have beat Rutgers. They had over 500 yards against Rutgers. If they just made their field goals, they missed like 3. They probably would have won that game. And then Washington State, they had some, I think down at the goal line, something happened. Like they could have easily won that game too. So this team could have easily been undefeated or at least just one loss. So this is exactly what I wanted to do though against these new Big Ten teams, right? They're coming into the conference. You want to show that, hey, you got to be physical. You got to be, the line of scrimmage is very important. And yesterday, that's really what it came down to, was the line of scrimmage play. Both offensively and defensively, we hands down won that. Now, yes, we gave up some runs here or there, but overall, you look at the defensive line, creating pressure, and then our offensive line just completely dominating. I mean, we ran the ball 37 times to only 14 times passing. And, I think a lot of people are going to look at like the passing numbers like, oh, only 100 and what was it, 8 yards. I know we can look it up here soon when we share the screen, but over 100 yards, it's very, very small. But we didn't really need to pass the ball yesterday. I mean, Caleb Johnson was doing good. Our offensive line was just manhandling them, and we just kept running the ball. And we were set up in a lot of short field positions where it wasn't like we really needed it to go the length of the football field to score a touchdown. I mean, you think of Caden Weegan's punt return, you think of some of those turnovers that happened where we started in our own territory. Like it's one of those games where, yes, it wasn't, when you look at the box score, it wasn't sexy and it wasn't something where like, wow, we won 40-16 with only putting up over 300 some yards, but we did what we needed to do. And that was, once again, the run game and this new run concept by Lester I absolutely love. And speaking of Lester, that was hands down his best game play calling.
Given the opponent and also what actually transpired early on in that game, where you saw that pitch play to Weegan, kind of like a little reverse play. You saw like the motion, like spin around from Cade McNamara. It was like a draw play to Kamari Moulton. Like, just again, plays that we haven't really seen before. Maybe not creative in the passing game, but creative in the run game, and it worked flawlessly throughout the entire game. I mean, like you said, our run game was elite yesterday.
Yeah, and looking at Cade McNamara's numbers, he didn't have a bad game. Like, I'm not going to criticize him at all. 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He didn't really ask to do much, and he didn't really do much. I mean, he did miss on that one throw to Reese Vanderzee to go into halftime. I mean, you got to connect on that.
Those are still some of those throws that we gotta be able to connect on.
Yep,
you just got to. But
exactly, third downs, and we keep talking about this. The third down conversion rate or completion percentage has been really good so far this year, outside of like what the last few years have been. 5 for 10, like 50%. Like, I will gladly take that. Washington, meanwhile, was 5 for 15. You look at these stats or the box score essentially, and you're like, how did we win 40-16? Those 2 turnovers for Washington were huge. Now, we only got 6 points out of those 2 turnovers, just 2 field goals, but where they happened at, and I'm going to bring up the drive chart here. Their first turnover was right after 2 drives where they went 14 plays, 73 yards, 14 plays, 75 yards. And so that first turnover was huge to just kind of like, okay, we got to get a turnover here. I even turned to you. I literally said it before, like 2 plays before that turnover. I was like, we desperately need a turnover. And then the other turnover came in the second half to start the third quarter, and they were driving. I mean, 8 plays, 52 yards. They were at like the 30 or 20 yard line, about ready to score, and Jabari Harris gets an interception. Huge turnover. And so that really helped. With this Iowa defense, I mean, this is just classic where, you kind of start the game off, you're kind of just feeling them out a little bit. You kind of let them, it seems like this happens a lot. You kind of let them kind of go down the field and just kind of dink and dunk. We let you do that. But at some point, we know that you're going to make a mistake. We know you're going to turn the ball over, or you're going to have a penalty where it's just a drive killer. And that's exactly what happened here. And for them to have 14 plays, 73 yards, 14 plays, 75 yards, and only have 7 points out of that, that is really honestly kind of draining for them, I'm sure. And then right after that, it was, and you see here on the drive chart, it was really good outside of, that field goal at the end of the second quarter, which we could talk about. Was that a field goal? Was it not? And then their touchdown at the end of the game, and you said it. Yeah, I mean, it was against our backups, so I'm not going to take much out of that too. I mean, it really honestly was a 40-10 game, similar to last week. It was honestly like a 35-0 type of game. Yeah, we scored, but it's against their backups.
Yeah, and what really jumps out to me, and like what you had mentioned, Collin, the field position. I mean, you look at it right here, average owned starting field position for Iowa is at their own 45. I mean, that's incredible as compared to Washington at their own 24. I mean, so you're looking at 20 yards of field position every time they get the ball. I mean, Iowa was set up in great field position all day, whether it was Weegan returning, whether it was turnovers, whether it was a blocked field goal, right? Like, everything went Iowa's way yesterday. We gave up a lot of yards, but it was a bend but don't break type of performance for the defense, for sure.
And we're okay with that, honestly. Like, if we let you dink and dunk, get a lot of yards, but it ends up being nothing or field goals, we'll take that.
It's all about the scoring defense, right? Not so much maybe the yards, because I don't think, like, our defense definitely isn't as good as maybe last year or even the year before in terms of maybe the stats, the statistics, the sacks, or the amount of yards we give up, yards per play, whatever. But when it matters most, yesterday we did a fantastic job of limiting them. I mean, I think they only essentially take out the last drive. They scored 10 points with being on our side of the field. I mean, you read it, 14 play. There was another 8 for 50 another one for like 9 for something. Like, they had so many opportunities to score, and they only got like 10 points, which is crazy.
Also, another thing I want to mention, I was thinking this last night. You look at the time of possession, 35 minutes to 25 minutes for Iowa. The fact that we as an offense, put up 40 points in 25 minutes of time possession is honestly pretty good considering how much we run the football. And I just want to point that out, kind of going back to the Tim Lester, just saying, I just think overall it was such a good day. On the bottom, rushing to passing, Washington passed 50 times to us only 14 times. So clearly for them, that was kind of their game plan. And then for us, our game plan was let's just keep running the football. We knew that we had a better line of scrimmage play because once again, this Washington team and maybe all the West Coast teams, maybe outside of Oregon, that's just something that, they're going to have to get better at. I mean, it's similar to like Nebraska when they came into the Big Ten and they really struggled at it. It's just a line of scrimmage play because in the Big Ten, you look at the Big Ten, it's not a sexy conference. And I think a lot of teams on the outside think that they could easily come in and do really well in the Big Ten. And maybe you will. But I do think, though, there is that learning adjustment of, you got to be good on the defensive line and offensive line to have sustained success in the Big Ten.
Yeah. And I mean, you look at it, they had 80 plays to us only having 51 plays. I mean, 80 plays. That's a lot of plays for an offense. And our defense was out there for a long ass time, right? And they, like we said, we gave up drives, but we weathered the storm. But I really think Iowa, being able to run the football efficiently yesterday, they weren't gonna abandon the run when they knew that they could get 8 yards of carry or whatever. Caleb Johnson had 9 yards of carry. I mean, it was a hell of a day for him again, which is awesome to see too.
Yep, 21 attempts for 166 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then he also had 22 receiving yards. That's something that I have talked about for a long time. It's like, let's get the running backs involved in the passing game. I mean, they're too good not to get involved. Yesterday, 3 catches, 22 yards, and a touchdown out of it. And once again, you look at the passing, only 3 catches out of the wide receivers. Yes, that's a concern. But once again, I just think the game plan was like, just run the football.
Really quick, when we got up, when in the first half, when you're up, 20-10, I mean, there's no reason to have Cade make a mistake, blow this lead like we've seen against Iowa State, right? And I mean, if they can't stop it, you keep running the football. So
exactly. And I do want to bring up, and this was a good play call by Lester. Great throw by Cade. If you haven't watched replay, I would suggest you do, to Dane Howard. I love that play call because it was a 4th and 1 for Washington, I believe. And so it was turnover on downs. At that point, the game's pretty much over. Everybody thought in the stands, including probably the Washington's bench, that we're just going to run the football. And the reason why is because we had our backup wide receivers in. We had Dane Howard and either Jarrett Bowie or Seth Anderson. I don't know. I have to go back and rewatch it. And so it was just that
typical run
block. It was going to be a run play. Yes.
Yep.
And so credit to Lester to kind of throw that off a little bit because every time they're in there, it's more of a run play. I mean, I would love to look at the numbers, but I guarantee you, it's probably 80 or 90% of the time when Dane Howard or Jerry Aboui's in there, it's going to be a run play. And so to do a play action pass, it was a great play call. And once again, a really good throw by Cade. Almost got blocked. It was actually incredible. It was like by the fingertips. Almost got blocked by the defensive lineman, but great throw, great catch, touchdown. That's huge. That is something moving forward. Like, that's why this type of offense can be deadly in a way, because if you can get the run game going, those linebackers, and on the replay, you saw them all creep up right away. And then they're like, oh shit, nope, it's a pass. And they start coming back. Well, by then it's too late. And so that's something moving forward if we can do. And I really like that play because, hey, you're stretching the ball down the field. It wasn't like a 40, 50-yard bomb, but it's a 20-yard vertical pass down the field. I'm tired of these horizontal plays. A lot of it, I think, has to do with just Cade's ability not to be able to really throw the ball down the field very well. But that's a play that I absolutely love, and I hope to see more of as we continue on.
Well, it was the time of the game, like you had just said. We were up. It was the 4th quarter. I think there was like 10 or 11 minutes to go or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Foot to gas. I love that. Be aggressive on first down. Don't just do what we do, milk it, go 3 and out. Oh, settle for a field goal. You make or miss it. Oh, okay. No, it was aggressive, and I want to continue to see more of that for sure.
We're definitely, it does feel like as the weeks go on, we're just learning to be a little bit more competent as each week goes on. I know last week it's Ohio State, but Ohio State's a whole different beast. But that's something that's encouraging to really see. I also want to bring up Brendan Sullivan because I'm deathly afraid that that one mistake, Kirk is going to like hang on to that, which I think is BS. But I mean, I'll admit, I mean, it's like, what are you doing? Like, why did you do that? But I also, and I told you this after the game at our tailgate, I said, you know, Brendan only gets so many opportunities to go out there. And so he's trying to make that play. Do I necessarily agree with it? To do that? No, not at all. Especially at that moment, because we were only up 20-10 at that point. Like I kind of forgot about that. For some reason, I was thinking we were up by more at that time, but we weren't. So it's like, you can't let that happen. But at the same time, you know, he only gets maybe 5 opportunities a game to go in there, and he's going to try to make the play. And I just hope Kirk doesn't keep that in the back of his mind, and moving forward, we don't see it, because it's still highly effective. That was literally the first time since we started doing this, since the Troy game, bringing in Brendan Sullivan, where it hasn't worked. And so the numbers are still in your favor of, this is a good plan. We got to continue doing this. And so I hope we do continue to see it. We finally did see Brendan even in between the 20s, right? That 4th and 2 or 1. And we did a shotgun, which I liked. I had a feeling it was going to be a QB draw. He brings Caleb in motion, and we get 3 or 4 yards, easy first down. I want to see more of that as well with him, but I don't know, man. Like Kirk, I feel like has those with the backup quarterbacks, which is bullshit, because it's like the starters have mistakes too, and you don't do anything. But I have a feeling that might affect seeing Brendan Sullivan. We'll probably still see him, but I wonder if it'll be as much because of that mistake.
Well, then after the mistake, and I guess I didn't catch it in real time maybe, but I don't know if it was the next time we were down in that situation or what, but we didn't see Brendan Sullivan. It was actually Cade finishing the drive off or whatever. So, and
actually, not now that you say that I do agree with that, because usually at the 6 or 7 yard line, we do have Sullivan in there. So like, I guess I don't know.
I mean, your fear might come. I just think, again, you look at the situation, it was a botch snap, right? It wasn't like he was running around and that's all he did. It was a botch snap. He actually grabbed it, and instead of what he thought was taking like a sack, essentially, he tried to kind of throw it away. And so I think it was just a weird play. He shouldn't have done it, obviously. But like you said, and I never thought of that, and it's actually a good point. It's like, I think he's trying to make the most out of his opportunities. And at that time, obviously, he tried to do too much, right?
Yeah. And it really annoys me that, was it us or them that called a timeout? I think the play prior, because that definitely was going to be a passing play. We had a tight end go in motion, and Sullivan started rolling out. And if you watch the replay, one of the wide receivers was going to do like a pick play, I think, to the tight end, but we called a timeout. We were going through the motion of it. And then there was a timeout. I was like, God damn it. Because like that definitely would have been a passing play by Sullivan. And that would have been kind of cool to see if like he can connect on a pass like that, because we have yet to do that. Well, I guess we had that one where it was more kind of like an RPO, and he just kind of handed it off to, like he could have easily ran that one in. So, I just hope we continue to do this moving forward, because it's still highly effective. So that being said, great win yesterday. You're now, what are we, 4-2? Which is good. I wish we were 5-1. It still pains me to, and I think every win that we have after that Iowa State game, it pains me even more, because it's like, man, we should not have lost that game. We should be 5-1. And you think about, like, if we were 5-1 right now, we would be ranked top 15 in the country. Iowa State would be ranked, so that would be still a really good win. That Wisconsin or the Minnesota game is looking more and more like a really good win on the road. They won again last night at UCLA. They beat USC last week. And then I think this Washington game was a like I said, I'm not saying Washington's some like really good team, but it's a good win. But yeah, so moving forward, this was one of those games where going in, I know you said you felt good. I didn't feel as good about it. But if we play like this the rest of the way, or close to this, and you look at our schedule, we have every right to finish the year 10-2. Like this every game moving forward. I don't know if there's any game or any team that is much better than Washington. And so we have a great opportunity to still have a really good season. This is a big game this next week at Michigan State. I see we're 6.5 point favorites, but it's a night game on the road, and that's always tricky.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing when you look at the college football landscape right now is anybody can be beaten. I mean, we just saw that, right? You
Yeah.
see Alabama win against Georgia at home and then go lose on the road to Vanderbilt. I mean, it can happen to any team. It's a long season yet. I think it's too early, like you said, for maybe college football playoff talk. Um, when you look at us, like you said, it stings that Iowa State loss with every win that we accumulate because we had that game. We blew that
Yep.
game. It was on us, and that's the hardest part, I think, to accept that loss is because you see them, they're 6-0 now. I mean, they've got everything in front of them, which being an Iowa fan, I'm not gonna lie, like it sucks to see that, right? Us or me not really liking Iowa State, but hey, they're a really good team and they earned it, and so all you can do if you're Iowa is go out and continue to control what you can control. And like you said, big game next week, Michigan State, night game. It'll be fun to watch.
Yeah. I mean, and you see Vegas giving us a 6.5-point favorite because, at the end of the day, we are a better team. Like, we just need to go in there, treat it as a business trip, just get the W. Seems like it's been forever since we played at Michigan State. We obviously played them last year, famous Cooper Jean punt return, but this is a kind of a new team. They got the head coach from Oregon State. Their quarterback I don't think he's like, I know he turns the ball over a lot, which might be in favor for this Iowa defense. But yeah, just get that dub, and then you get Northwestern at home. You get Wisconsin, who's starting to look a lot better. About 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, I would have been like, man, like that's looking like an easy win at home. Yeah. And now, they have a backup quarterback now because their main quarterback got hurt, and they just went on the road at Rutgers. Maybe Rutgers isn't as good as we thought, but they killed them 42-7. So that's going to be a tough game. And then you have to go on the road at UCLA. Big Ten record when you're traveling 2 time zones is not great. And even Minnesota, even though they escaped UCLA last night, they struggled. I mean, it took until the very end to beat them on the road. So that's going to be a tough game. That Maryland game is looking a little bit easier. I don't think Maryland's that good. Northwestern obviously just smoked them at home on Friday night. And then we get Nebraska, which I think is going to be a very big game, night game on NBC on Friday night. That will be a huge game. So yeah, Iowa has, like I said, a great opportunity to go on a win streak and have a great year. So that will do it for this episode. We will be back following the Michigan State game next Sunday to go over that game. Hopefully it's a dub. Hopefully we're feeling good going into 2 straight home games. But until then, have a good rest of your week and go Hawks.